Listen to me. The greatest battles you will ever fight won't be in the gym, won't be on the field, won't be in the boardroom. The greatest battles are the ones nobody else can see, the ones happening in your mind. See, your body can be strong, but if your mind is broken, life will break you. And the crazy part is, most people don't even realize they're losing that invisible war. They think depression is weakness. They think anxiety is just overthinking. They think trauma is something you can just bury and walk away from. No, if you don't face it, it will eat you alive. The secret to mental health is not running from the pain. It's learning how to master it. Because the mind, write this down, the mind is the gatekeeper of your destiny. If you can't control what happens in here, you will never control what happens out there. Listen to me. I know a lot of people think motivation is about energy, about hype, about getting fired up and screaming at the top of your lungs. Like that's going to carry you through life. But the real secret, the thing nobody wants to talk about, is that motivation at its core is mental health. It's not just how loud you can shout or how fast you can run on the treadmill. It's whether or not you can wake up in the morning with a reason to keep going when everything around you is falling apart. It's whether or not your mind is strong enough to keep you from collapsing when your body, your money, your circumstances, all of it says you should quit. I had to learn that the hard way. I thought I was strong because I could endure the streets. I could survive without a father. I could take pain and never cry about it. I thought that was strength, but real talk, it wasn't. That was me burying the wounds so deep, I didn't even know they were bleeding. You can't build wealth. You can't build a future. You can't build a family if your mind is broken, because your body will go where your mind tells it to go. And if your mind is stuck in pain, stuck in trauma, stuck in what you don't have, then even when you got a blessing in your hand, you'll figure out a way to see it as a curse. I remember living in those abandoned buildings in Detroit, eating out of trash cans, and I thought I was cursed. I thought life had singled me out to lose. I used to say, why me? Why didn't I have a father? Why did I have to come up in this neighborhood? Why was I the one sleeping on floors while other people got beds? That mentality kept me broke, not just financially, but spiritually and mentally, because when you spend all your time asking, why me? You never leave space to ask, what now? You never leave space to see that even in the worst situation, there's still something to build from. It wasn't until I shifted my mind that things changed. I stopped looking at homelessness as the worst thing that ever happened to me. I started seeing it as the thing that taught me survival, the thing that built my resilience. I realized I wasn't dead, and as long as I had breath, I had opportunity. I took that GED like it was a key, not just a certificate. That GED turned into a 4-year degree, which turned into a master's, which turned into a PhD. Do you see the shift? The circumstances didn't change overnight. My father didn't show up. My mother didn't suddenly get older and wiser. The only thing that changed was my mental health. I stopped looking at what was broken and I started counting what was left. And once I started counting what I had, I realized I had more than enough to build with. That's why I tell people all the time, the greatest wealth you'll ever create starts in your mind. You can get all the money, you can get the big house, the car, the contracts, but if your mind is poor, your life will stay poor. I've seen people who got millions in the bank, but bankrupt in the soul. I've seen people with no legs, no health, and yet they're richer in spirit than the healthiest athlete, because mental health is wealth. Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That was centuries ago, but it's still truth today. You can't control what happens out there, but you can control how you respond in here. And I know some of you are going through it right now. Some of you lost jobs, lost loved ones, lost opportunities. Some of you think life is over because the thing you built your identity on was taken away. I know that feeling. When the pandemic hit, my whole career as a speaker was shut down. Stadiums empty, locker rooms closed. Nobody paying $50K for me to get on Zoom. And in that moment, I had to practice what I preach. I had to stop saying it's over and start asking, what else can I do? I turned that crisis into a classroom. I wrote a book. I made deals. I built systems that are still paying me today because I refused to let one season of loss take away my mental wealth. Mental health means betting on yourself when nobody else will. It means when you're standing in the middle of a storm, you plant your feet and you say, I'm not going anywhere. It means training your mind daily the same way you train your body. You lift weights to grow muscles, but do you meditate? Do you pray? Do you reflect? Do you journal to grow your mind? Because if not, you're lopsided. You're carrying around strength in one arm and weakness in the other, and eventually that imbalance will break you. I need you to understand this. Motivation is not a speech. It's not a song. It's not a video clip. Motivation is mental health. It's the decision to see the blessing instead of the burden. It's the decision to use pain as fuel instead of letting it paralyze you. It's the discipline to build your mind strong enough to carry the weight of the dream you're chasing. Because if your mind can carry it, your life will follow. And that right there is the secret to mental health. I need you to hear me clearly, because too many of you are walking around letting the past drag you like chains on your ankles. You don't even realize you're free, but you're still walking like a prisoner. The truth is, your past doesn't define you, but if you don't heal from it, it will destroy you. That's why so many of us are stuck in cycles. You say you want to be wealthy, you say you want to be successful, you say you want to break generational curses, but you keep letting the wounds of yesterday dictate the choices of today. You're bleeding on opportunities that didn't even hurt you, sabotaging blessings because you haven't healed from burdens. I know what that feels like. I was that kid, angry at the world because my father wasn't there. I thought being tough meant pretending it didn't matter. But let me tell you, pretending doesn't heal. Silence doesn't heal. You can bury pain alive, but it will claw its way back out. And when it comes back, it shows up in ways you don't even notice at first. It shows up in the way you treat people who love you. It shows up in the way you doubt yourself before you even try. It shows up in the way you quit when life hits because the wound you never dealt with keeps reopening. Some of you are brilliant, gifted, powerful, but the reason you can't move forward is because you've never confronted what's holding you back. You're trying to build wealth with a poverty mindset, trying to build relationships with a broken heart, trying to build a future with hands that are still shaking from yesterday's trauma. That's like trying to build a mansion on cracked concrete. It might look good for a while, but eventually it collapses. Healing doesn't make you weak. Healing makes you powerful. Aristotle said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Some of you know how to hustle, how to grind, how to fake it till you make it, but you don't know yourself. You don't know the triggers that keep you running in circles. You don't know the insecurities that keep you playing small. You don't know the brokenness that makes you chase things that don't even matter because you think if you get enough money, enough attention, enough likes, it'll fill the hole. But let me help you. It won't. Healing is the work that fills the hole. Healing is the work that makes you whole. I had to forgive people who never asked for forgiveness. I had to forgive a father who never showed up because I realized carrying that bitterness was costing me my future. How do you generate wealth when you're still paying interest on old pain? How do you create abundance when your mental account is in overdraft because of bitterness and anger? I had to deposit forgiveness, deposit gratitude, deposit resilience before I could ever withdraw success. And don't get it twisted. Healing is not a one-time thing. It's not just crying one night and then saying you're good. Healing is a daily discipline. It's waking up every day and deciding that yesterday's pain won't control today's choices. It's learning to speak over yourself differently. It's rewriting the story you've been telling yourself. You've been saying, I'm broken. I'm not good enough. I don't have what they have. Healing says, I've been through it, but I'm still standing. I may not have what they have, but I've got exactly what I need to win. I met people who had every reason to give up but didn't. I met a young man dying of cancer, body shutting down, but every time I saw him, he was smiling. He was encouraging me. How is that possible? Because physically he was weak, but mentally he had healed. He had accepted his reality, but he didn't let it steal his spirit. That's the secret. Life doesn't break you because of what happens. Life breaks you because of how you respond. And when you heal, you respond with power instead of pain. Don't let your past rob you of your wealth. Don't let the trauma your parents gave you become the inheritance you pass on to your children. Break that cycle. Build a new one. Because mental health isn't just about surviving. It's about thriving. It's about having the clarity to see opportunities and the strength to seize them. It's about building wealth, not just financially, but emotionally and spiritually. So you can pass down more than money. You can pass down resilience, wisdom, and strength. Your past may explain you, but it does not define you. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become after it happened. And until you make peace with the past, you'll never own the future. So I'm telling you today, the secret to mental health is not forgetting the pain. It's facing it, healing from it, and then using it as fuel to build a future so strong that the past has no power over you anymore. We grew up being told that strength means silence. Don't cry. Don't complain. Don't let them see you sweat. That's what I was taught. As a man, as a competitor, as a kid trying to survive on the streets, I thought if I showed emotion, if I admitted hurt, it meant I was weak. But I learned the hard way. Silence doesn't make you strong. Silence makes you sick. Silence is what eats you alive in the middle of the night when nobody's around. Real strength is not pretending you're okay. It's admitting when you're not and doing the work to get better. I spent years walking around with a mask on. On the outside, I was grinding. I was tough. I was making it happen. But inside, I was broken. I never cried. I never asked for help. I never told anybody what I was carrying. And let me tell you, the weight of unspoken pain is heavier than any physical weight you will ever lift. You can push 300 pounds in the gym, but try carrying trauma, anger, and shame in silence. It will break you quicker than a barbell ever will. Strength is being real enough to say, I'm hurting, but I'm not quitting. I'm struggling, but I'm not stopping. I need help. And I'm not ashamed to ask for it because healing doesn't start until honesty starts. Seneca once said, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. And that courage doesn't come from hiding. It comes from facing the truth. Think about it. The most dangerous injuries are the ones you don't see. If you sprain your ankle, you'll sit down, you'll ice it, you'll rehab it. But what about when your heart is sprained? What about when your spirit is bleeding? You walk around like you're good because you don't want to look weak, but inside you're breaking down. That's why so many people lose before the game even starts, because the battle in their head has already defeated them. I had to learn this as a speaker, as a husband, as a father. I used to think being the provider meant never showing vulnerability. But what I found out is my wife and kids didn't need me to be silent. They needed me to be whole. They needed me to be honest about what I was going through so I could lead with authenticity, not with pretense. Silence doesn't make you strong. It makes you distant. And when you're distant, you disconnect from the very people and opportunities that could save you. Let me give you a practical example. During the recession, when speaking engagements dried up, I could have stayed silent, pretended everything was fine, and drowned in the pressure. But instead, I spoke up. I had conversations. I wrote about it. I turned what looked like failure into a book deal, into new streams of income. If I had stayed silent, I would have stayed stuck. But strength is found in expression, not suppression. Some of you are carrying generational pain in silence. Your mother never talked about it. Your father never talked about it. So now you don't talk about it. And what happens? The cycle repeats. You're teaching your kids the same lie, that silence is power. But let me be real with you. Silence is the enemy of growth. Healing only comes when you confront the truth. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying cry every day and tell the world your business. I'm saying stop lying to yourself. Stop acting like you're okay when you're not. Because you can't fix what you won't face. And if you keep hiding, you'll keep hurting. Wealth generation, success, legacy, it's all built on clarity and energy. You can't build anything meaningful when your energy is being drained by unspoken pain. Look at history. The greatest leaders weren't silent about struggle. They spoke, they cried out, they stood on platforms and said, this is what's happening and this is how we fight. The prophets, the philosophers, the revolutionaries, they didn't confuse silence with strength. They used their voices as weapons, and that's why we remember them. Plato said, the worst of all deceptions is self-deception. And that's exactly what silence is. You deceiving yourself into believing you're fine when you're not. So I need you to flip the script. Stop thinking silence makes you stronger. Real strength is vulnerability with discipline. It's the courage to face what hurts so you can heal it. It's the wisdom to say, I can't carry this alone, and that's okay. It's the humility to seek help, to pray, to talk, to release. Because the secret to mental health is not bottling it up. It's letting it out in a way that builds you instead of breaks you. I came from nothing, and I had every reason to keep my mouth shut and suffer in silence. But when I started opening up, when I started being real about the pain and the trauma, that's when I started to grow. That's when I started to truly build wealth, not just in my bank account, but in my soul. And once my soul got rich, everything else followed. So don't let silence steal your strength. Don't let pride keep you chained. The real warriors aren't the ones who never admit weakness. The real warriors are the ones who admit it, confront it, and overcome it. That's sister's secret to mental health. The problem with a lot of us is not that we don't have blessings, it's that we don't know how to see them. Do you ever notice how some people can have everything and still act like they've got nothing? They're in a house somebody else is praying for, driving a car somebody else would die for, working a job somebody else would beg for, and yet they complain every single day. That's not life being unfair. That's a mindset problem. That's what I call poverty of perspective. Mental illness is when you're standing in the middle of blessings, but all you can see are burdens. Mental health is when you train your eyes to recognize opportunity, even when it's wrapped in adversity. When I was homeless, eating out of trash cans, I thought I had nothing. But when I finally shifted my perspective, I realized I had the one thing that mattered most. I had life. I had breath in my lungs. And with breath comes opportunity. I didn't have a father in the home, but I had a mother who did the best she could. I didn't have a bed, but I had enough strength to keep waking up. And once I learned to stop focusing on what was missing and start focusing on what was present, my whole life changed. I saw that a GED wasn't a curse. It was a doorway. That doorway led to a 4-year degree. That degree opened another door to a master's. That master's opened the door to a PhD. The same situation, but a different set of eyes. Some of you are sitting in the middle of your blessing right now, but because you only see the burden, you're about to throw away what God has given you. You call that job a burden, but it's funding your dream. You call that class a burden, but it's the foundation for your success. You call that struggle a burden, but it's building the muscles you're going to need later. Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And that's the truth. Two people can go through the same storm. One comes out bitter, the other comes out better. The difference isn't the storm, it's the sight. I learned this during the pandemic. My whole career was on the line. No stadiums, no gyms, no flights, no speaking gigs. For a moment, I saw nothing but burden. I thought it was over. But then I caught myself. I said, wait a minute. If you can't travel, what can you do? If you can't speak on a stage, where else can you speak? I shifted my vision. That burden season became the blessing that birthed new books, new deals, new streams of income. I had to stop complaining about what was gone and start celebrating what was still in my hands. That's the key. What are you still holding that you're overlooking? See, gratitude is wealth. You ever meet somebody who has almost nothing, but they're always smiling? You ever wonder why? It's because they see the blessing in the small things. They know that every breath is a gift, every sunrise is a chance, every step forward is a victory. Meanwhile, somebody else with everything you think you want is miserable because they can't stop staring at the one thing they don't have. That's the difference between poverty and prosperity. It's not just money, it's mentality. Let me make it practical. You say the gym is a burden. You're tired. You don't want to go. But the blessing is that you have a body capable of moving. There are people praying for the legs you complain about. You say studying is a burden, but the blessing is that you've got a mind sharp enough to learn. There are people who would give anything for that opportunity. You say your little business is a burden because it's not making millions yet, but the blessing is you've got something that's yours, something you can grow. The seed never looks like the tree, but if you don't see the seed as a blessing, you'll never get to the harvest. And I promise you this, if you can't see blessings in small things, you'll never be trusted with big things. Life won't hand you more if you can't handle less. That's why so many people chase wealth but never catch it. They're waiting for the big blessing to show up, but they keep overlooking the small ones. But I learned that wealth is built little by little, brick by brick, opportunity by opportunity. And when you start seeing blessings instead of burdens, you maximize what's in your hand until it multiplies. Marcus Aurelius said, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. If your thoughts are focused on burdens, you'll always feel broke. But if your thoughts are focused on blessings, you'll always feel rich, even before the bank account shows it. That mindset will attract opportunities because grateful people work harder, serve better, and inspire more. And when you do that, doors open. I need you to practice this today. Stop saying, I have to, and start saying, I get to. You don't have to go to work. You get to. You don't have to study. You get to. You don't have to grind. You get to shift the words, shift the perspective, shift the outcome. Because the secret to mental health is this. Blessings are always there, but if you can't see them, you'll live like you're cursed. Open your eyes. What looks like a burden today may be the very thing that saves your life tomorrow. People think freedom comes from doing whatever you want, whenever you want with no restrictions. That's the lie that's killing our generation. You don't get freedom by doing everything. You get freedom by disciplining yourself to do the right things. Discipline is the highest form of self-love because when you're disciplined, you protect your future self from your present self. Mental health isn't about escaping life. It's about structuring life so that your mind is not always at war with itself. I remember when I was younger, I thought freedom was staying up all night, running the streets, doing what I felt like doing. But that freedom came with the cost. I was exhausted, broke, and mentally unstable. Every day I was paying for the lack of discipline. Then I realized true freedom isn't the ability to say yes, it's the power to say no. Discipline is when you tell yourself, I don't care how I feel, I care about where I'm going. You start choosing actions that align with your future, not just your feelings. And when you do that, your mind gets quiet. You're no longer tormented by guilt, regret, or confusion because you've set a standard for yourself. Think about a soldier. A soldier doesn't wake up and ask, do I feel like training today? No. The soldier trains because his life depends on it. And because of that discipline, he moves with confidence, with clarity, with strength. That's how discipline works for your mind. When you wake up with a routine, when you follow through with commitments, when you stay consistent, your mind begins to trust you. That trust creates peace, and peace is the soil where mental health grows. I know some of you want to build wealth, but you can't do it if you don't master discipline. You say you want financial freedom, but if you spend every dollar you make, your mind will always be restless. You say you want success in school, but if you can't discipline yourself to study, your mind will always be stressed. Discipline today is what removes anxiety tomorrow. You've got to connect the dots. Your peace is tied to your patterns. Let me give you a real example from my life. When I started waking up at 3 a.m., people thought I was crazy. Why would you do that? They ask, why would you take sleep away from yourself? What they didn't understand is that discipline gave me freedom. By 8 a.m., I had already handled my workout, my study, my planning. While the world was just waking up, I was already in control of my day. That gave me mental clarity because I wasn't chasing time. Time was chasing me. And every day I repeated that discipline. I grew stronger in my mind. That's what people miss. It's not about the clock. It's about control. Discipline allows you to take back control of your life. Seneca once said, most powerful is he who has himself in his own power. And that's the truth. You think power is money, status, influence, but the real power is the ability to govern yourself. You can't control the economy. You can't control what other people do. You can't control the weather, but you can control your habits. And when you master those, you build an inner kingdom no storm can destroy. That inner kingdom is called mental health. I want you to understand this. Discipline doesn't kill joy, it creates it. People think discipline is punishment, but it's actually preparation. A runner disciplines his body with hours of training, and because of that, he experiences the joy of winning. A musician disciplines her hands with hours of practice, and because of that, she experiences the joy of mastery. You think joy just falls from the sky? No, joy is the reward of discipline. Mental stability is the reward of discipline. That's why so many people feel lost. They've confused comfort with freedom. Comfort is temporary relief, but discipline is permanent release. Let me make it plain. If you discipline yourself to eat right, your body will thank you with health. If you discipline yourself to manage your money, your future will thank you with wealth. If you discipline yourself to focus, your mind will thank you with peace. That's why when you're disciplined, you don't walk around with guilt. You don't lay awake at night thinking about what you should have done. You rest because you know you did what you needed to do. That rest is mental freedom. I'll never forget this one student I coached. She was brilliant, but she struggled with anxiety. Her grades were slipping. Her confidence was gone. I asked her, "What's your daily routine?" She told me she didn't have one. She just did whatever felt urgent that day. I said, "That's your problem. Your lack of structure is costing you your sanity." We worked on a simple discipline. Study for 2 hours every morning before the distractions. Within months, her grades went up. Her anxiety went down, not because life got easier, but because she took control. Aristotle said, "Through discipline comes freedom." That's not just a nice saying, that's real. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. And that bridge, once built, gives you peace every time you walk across it. So hear me clearly. The secret to mental health isn't in escaping responsibility. It's in embracing discipline. Because when you conquer yourself, you'll find the freedom no outside force can take away. Everybody out here talking about wealth like it's just numbers in a bank account. But let me tell you something. Wealth is bigger than money. You can have millions and still be bankrupt in your mind. You can drive the nicest car, live in the biggest house, and still be a prisoner in your own head. Real wealth begins with mental stability. Because what good is it to own the world and lose your mind in the process? I've met people who were financially rich, but spiritually broke, emotionally broke, mentally broke. They were buying peace of mind through vacations, cars, and substances, but none of it lasted. Because wealth doesn't start with what you acquire. It starts with what you can handle. If your mind is chaotic, your money won't heal it. If your spirit is restless, no amount of gold will calm it. That's why true wealth is balance, clarity, and peace in your mind first. I know because I lived it. Before I ever had a platform, before I had any recognition, I had to get my mind right. I was homeless. I was broken. I didn't have stability. I could have had $1 million back then, and I still would have wasted it because my mind wasn't disciplined. My habits weren't aligned. My spirit wasn't settled. Getting my mind right was the wealth that allowed me to build financial wealth later. If I hadn't built that first, I'd have lost everything as quick as I gained it. Think about it. How many lottery winners go broke within years of winning? How many athletes make hundreds of millions and end up with nothing? They had money, but they didn't have wealth. Why? Because they lacked mental stability. They didn't understand discipline. They didn't master emotional control. They didn't have peace in their minds. That's proof wealth without mental stability is poverty in disguise. Marcus Aurelius said, "A man's true wealth is the good he does in the world." And I would add, your true wealth is also the peace you carry within yourself. You can't bless others if you're constantly battling yourself. When your mind is in turmoil, you can't create, you can't give, you can't grow. But when your mind is stable, you can see opportunities clearly. You can make decisions with wisdom. You can enjoy what you've built instead of being tormented by it. Let me give you a practical example. I once coached a businessman who was making 7 figures a year, but he was drowning in stress. He couldn't sleep. His family life was falling apart. His health was declining. He said, "I don't know what's wrong. I've got everything I ever wanted, but I feel empty." I told him, "You've got money, but you don't have wealth. You've been stacking dollars, but neglecting your mind. You built the house, but the foundation is cracking." We worked together on routines, journaling, rest, prayer, exercise, setting boundaries. Slowly, his mind calmed down. And you know what happened? He became even more successful financially because his decisions were clearer, his energy was stronger, his relationships were healthier. That's what happens when you realize money is a tool, not the treasure. The treasure is a stable mind. I'm telling you, when you invest in your mental stability, everything else multiplies. You can focus better. You recover from setbacks quicker. You enjoy the journey more. That's real wealth. That's why the Stoics used to say, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. If your mind is stable, you don't need a million things to be at peace. You can be calm in a storm. You can be rich in simplicity. And from that richness, you can build everything else. I remember when I first started waking up at 3 a.m., it wasn't about proving something to the world. It was about proving something to myself, that I was in control of my day, that my mind was stronger than my feelings, that stability was wealth, because I wasn't reacting to life, I was leading it. And when you lead your mind, you build wealth that no recession, no critic, no failure can take from you. Let me break it down plain. If you want money, but you don't want mental stability, you're chasing a prison sentence. You'll be locked up in anxiety, locked up in paranoia, locked up in stress. But if you build stability in your mind, you'll be free no matter how much money you have. That's why I tell people, don't just invest in stocks, invest in structure. Don't just invest in property, invest in peace. Don't just build an empire, build endurance in your spirit. That's wealth. Socrates once said, he who is not contented with what he has would not be contented with what he would like to have. That's powerful, because if you don't master contentment, money will never satisfy you. If you don't master your mind, success will feel like slavery. But if you stabilize your spirit, every blessing becomes sweeter. Every achievement becomes lighter. Every season becomes meaningful. So stop chasing wealth in the form of numbers. Start building wealth in the form of stability. Because when your mind is strong, your money will multiply. But when your mind is weak, your money will evaporate. Wealth is not just what's in your pocket. It's what's in your heart, your habits, and your head. And once you get that, you'll realize the greatest fortune you could ever hold is a mind at peace. Everybody wants peace. Everybody wants success. Everybody wants to feel whole in their spirit, but nobody wants to swallow the medicine. And I'm here to tell you, the medicine is called discipline. Discipline is bitter when you taste it, but sweet when you live it. Discipline is the cure for a restless mind, the anchor for a drifting soul, the fire that burns off anxiety, laziness, and doubt. Without discipline, you can't have mental health, because your mind will be running wild, chasing distractions, consumed by chaos. I had to learn that discipline wasn't punishment. It was protection. Waking up at 3 a.m. wasn't about looking hardcore. It was about telling my mind, you don't run me, I run you. Every time you control your habits, you prove to yourself that you're stronger than your excuses. And let me tell you something, excuses will destroy your mind faster than failure ever will. Excuses give you temporary comfort, but long-term pain. Discipline gives you temporary discomfort, but lifelong freedom. That's medicine. You ever seen somebody who can't stop eating junk food, can't stop binge watching shows, can't stop scrolling? They're trapped. They think it's harmless, but every habit you don't control eventually controls you. And when your habits control you, your mind is no longer healthy, it's enslaved. That's why the ancients used to say, he who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior, not the man who conquers a city, not the man who conquers nations, the man who conquers himself. Let me give you a practical example. When I was younger and struggling in school, I had no discipline. I'd skip classes, procrastinate, and tell myself I'd get serious tomorrow, but tomorrow never came. It wasn't until I decided to discipline myself, sit in the front row, take notes, stay after class, that my grades improved. It wasn't about IQ, it was about habits. Discipline changed my mind from chaos to clarity, from anxiety to achievement. And once I tasted that freedom, I never wanted to go back. Now, fast forward years later, I coach students, athletes, entrepreneurs, and I see the same pattern. The ones who lack discipline are always overwhelmed, always frustrated, always chasing peace, but never finding it. The ones with discipline, they may not be the smartest, but they're consistent. And consistency beats talent when talent refuses to work. Discipline stabilizes your mind because it gives you structure. Without structure, your mind is like water with no container, spilling everywhere, wasted. But with discipline, you create a container that shapes, directs, and multiplies your energy. Seneca once said, no man is free who is not a master of himself. That's it right there. You can't call yourself free. If your appetite runs you, if your emotions dictate you, if your distractions dominate you, freedom isn't doing whatever you want. Freedom is having the strength to not do what destroys you, and discipline gives you that strength. Look, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon. I didn't have wealth handed to me. I had to build it from scratch. And building wealth wasn't just about money. It was about building discipline. Waking up early when I wanted to sleep in. Saving money when I wanted to spend. Studying when I wanted to chill. Saying no when it felt easier to say yes. Every act of discipline was like medicine healing my weak areas. Every choice made me stronger. Every sacrifice made me sharper, until eventually discipline became not what I did, but who I was. And let's be real. Most people don't struggle because they don't know what to do. They struggle because they don't have the discipline to do it consistently. Mental health isn't just about therapy, meditation, or prayer. Those are tools, yes, but without discipline, even those tools won't last because you'll quit when it's inconvenient. You'll stop when it's uncomfortable. Discipline is what keeps you going when the feelings fade. I remember coaching an athlete who wanted to go pro. He had talent, but he lacked discipline. He'd show up late to practice, slack off in the gym, cut corners on diet. I told him talent will get you noticed, but discipline will keep you in the game. Once he locked in, once he committed to strict routines, sleep, diet, training, his whole mindset changed. His anxiety dropped. His confidence rose. His focus sharpened. Why? Because discipline wasn't just strengthening his body, it was healing his mind. He finally trusted himself, and that trust is the foundation of mental stability. Here's the truth. Discipline isn't glamorous. It's not fun to say no to your impulses. It's not exciting to do the same thing over and over again. But what's worse, temporary discomfort or a lifetime of regret, temporary sacrifice or permanent instability. I'll take the medicine every time because I know the cure is worth it. Aristotle said, through discipline comes freedom. That's the paradox. You think discipline locks you up, but really it sets you free. Free from fear, free from stress, free from regret. And when you're free, your mind can rest. When you're free, you can create. When you're free, you can build wealth, not just in dollars, but in dignity. So hear me well, discipline isn't optional. If you want mental health, it's the medicine that cures the sickness of procrastination, distraction, and weakness. Swallow it daily. Embrace it fully. Because once discipline becomes your lifestyle, peace will follow, success will multiply, and your mind will finally taste the freedom it's been craving all along. Some of you think you're grinding, but what you're really doing is breaking yourself down. You're wearing exhaustion like a badge of honor. But let me tell you, running on empty isn't power, it's poison. Rest is not weakness. Rest is strategy. Rest is a weapon that sharpens your mind, heals your body, and renews your spirit. Without rest, you don't just lose energy, you lose clarity, creativity, and control. And when your mind is foggy, your mental health starts to crack. I used to believe the only way to prove myself was to outwork everybody. And yes, the grind is real. The hustle is necessary. But there was a season in my life where I was doing too much. I was pushing without pausing, moving without reflecting. And the truth is, I wasn't operating at my best. I was burning out. You can't pour from an empty cup. And some of you are trying to serve your family, your business, your purpose with nothing left inside. That's not noble, that's dangerous. Think about a soldier on the battlefield. What do they do between fights? They rest, they reload, they recover. Because they know if they step into the next fight exhausted, they're not just risking defeat, they're risking death. Your life is no different. Every day is a battlefield for your mind, and if you don't take time to rest, you're walking into war unarmed. Rest is the weapon that makes sure you're ready when the real fight comes. There's a story I love to remind myself of. Two woodcutters went into the forest. One chopped nonstop, swinging his axe without ever taking a break. The other paused every hour to rest and sharpen his blade. At the end of the day, the one who rested had cut far more trees. Why? Because rest isn't wasted time. It's preparation time. It's what sharpens your blade. Your mind is the same way. You think sleeping, reflecting, stepping back is slowing you down. No, it's speeding you up. It's multiplying your effectiveness. When I was building my career, there were days I thought I had to say yes to everything. Every call, every event, every opportunity. But the more I said yes, the more drained I became. Until one day I realized my yes wasn't even at full strength anymore. I was giving people a weaker version of me because I hadn't taken time to recharge. So I flipped it. I made rest part of my grind. I scheduled it. I protected it. And the moment I did, my energy rose, my creativity flowed, and my ability to serve at a high level multiplied. Ancient wisdom tells us, even God rested on the seventh day. Think about that. The creator of the universe, infinite in power, modeled rest. If rest was built into creation, then how can we finite human beings think we can skip it? Rest isn't rebellion against the grind, it's obedience to wisdom. I remember coaching a young entrepreneur who was chasing his dream, but on the verge of breaking. He was working 18-hour days, barely sleeping, bragging about team no sleep, but his anxiety was through the roof. His decisions were sloppy and his relationships were falling apart. I told him, bro, you're not beating the system, you're breaking yourself. We worked on building rhythms of rest, scheduled sleep, unplugging from devices, journaling, prayer, exercise. Within weeks, his whole mindset shifted. He wasn't just more productive, he was more peaceful. His creativity came back. His confidence returned because rest restored what burnout was stealing. Here's the part most people miss. Rest isn't just about sleep. Rest is about alignment. It's about giving your soul permission to breathe. Sometimes rest means stepping away from toxic people. Sometimes it means saying no to things that don't serve your mission. Sometimes it means silence, stillness, solitude. Rest is not just physical, it's mental and spiritual. You can sleep for 10 hours and still wake up tired if your spirit is restless. But when you align your mind, body, and spirit with intentional rest, you rise ready to fight again. Marcus Aurelius once said, the mind must be given rest. It will rise clearer and stronger for it. And that's true. Rest isn't a pause in your purpose. It's part of your purpose. It's what allows you to fight longer, go further, and build stronger. You don't gain anything by running yourself into the ground. You gain everything by mastering the rhythm of push and pause. Wealth isn't built on hustle alone. It's built on sustainable energy. What good is money if you don't have health? What good is success if your mind is shattered? What good is the dream if you can't enjoy it? Rest is the protection of the blessing. It's the security system for your peace. Without it, everything you're building will collapse under the weight of exhaustion. So let me be clear. Rest is not for the weak. It's for the wise. It's not a break from the grind. It's part of the grind. It's the weapon that renews your strength, sharpens your mind, and heals your soul. Don't wait until burnout forces you to rest. Choose it now. Protect it daily. And you'll find yourself not just surviving, but thriving with a mind that's strong, stable, and ready for every battle ahead. Some of you are drowning right now, not because life is too heavy, but because you don't have purpose anchoring you. Pressure without purpose is chaos. But when you have purpose, that same pressure becomes power. Pressure is inevitable. Life will test you, stretch you, push you to the edge. But the secret is this: when you know why you're here, the weight doesn't crush you, it shapes you. Purpose gives pressure direction. Without it, the same stress that could make you will break you. I remember when I was homeless, sleeping in abandoned buildings, eating out of trash cans with no clear direction. The pressure was crushing me because I had nothing to attach it to. My mind was breaking under the load of survival. But the moment I discovered my why, the moment I realized I was put on this earth to inspire, to speak, to uplift, the same pressure that once buried me became the fuel that carried me. Purpose flipped the script. It didn't remove the struggle, but it gave the struggle meaning. Think about a diamond. A diamond doesn't form in comfort. It forms under extreme pressure. But the only reason it becomes a diamond is because of what's inside. Purpose is what allows you to take the weight and transform it into something priceless. Without purpose, pressure just crushes you into dust. But with purpose, pressure creates brilliance. Too many of you are trying to fight off pressure instead of aligning it with your purpose. You're running from stress, running from challenges, running from discomfort, and wondering why your mental health keeps collapsing. It's because pressure without purpose feels like punishment. But pressure with purpose feels like preparation. The two are completely different. I was once speaking with a student who was overwhelmed, depressed, and ready to give up. They kept saying, it's too much. I can't handle the pressure. I asked them, why are you doing it? What's your why? They went silent. And that silence told me everything. See, when you don't have a purpose, the weight of even small things feels unbearable. But when you have purpose, you can endure storms that should have destroyed you. You can walk through fire and still come out standing, because the fire isn't just burning you, it's refining you. One of the greatest philosophers said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow that truth is eternal." Your why is the anchor. Without it, every wave of pressure tosses you back and forth until you're lost. With it, no matter how violent the storm, you stay grounded. Let me be real with you. Purpose is not always pretty. It's not always easy. It doesn't always feel good. Sometimes purpose means walking through pain, enduring loneliness, sacrificing comfort. But here's the difference. Pain with purpose produces growth. Pain without purpose just produces suffering. And that's the secret to mental health. You don't remove all pain. You give pain meaning. You don't eliminate all stress. You assign it a direction. I once told a young entrepreneur, don't let the pressure push you away from your purpose. Let it push you deeper into it. When you're clear about why you're doing what you're doing, you can work through exhaustion, doubt, fear, because the why is stronger than the what. The why is stronger than the weight. Look at the stories of people who built wealth that lasted, who built legacies that outlived them. They weren't people who lived without pressure. They weren't people who avoided stress. They were people whose purpose was so powerful that the pressure became fuel, not failure. They didn't just grind for money. They grinded for meaning. That's why their names echo through history, because their purpose carried them through pressures that would have crushed ordinary people. And let's be clear, purpose doesn't just protect your grind, it protects your mind. Soul saying, anxiety thrives where there is no meaning. Depression grows where there is no direction. But when you know your why, when you wake up every morning with clarity of purpose, the mental storms don't control you. They may visit, they may shake you, but they don't own you. Purpose is the shield that guards your mental health. Think of a marathon runner. At mile 20, their body is screaming. Their legs are on fire. Their chest is pounding. That's pressure. But what carries them to the finish line? Purpose. The purpose to finish, to win, to prove something to themselves. Without that why, they would quit. With that why, they'd push through. That's the same way your life works. So hear me on this. Don't waste another day trying to escape pressure. Don't waste energy wishing for an easier path. Ask yourself instead, what's my purpose? What's my why? Because once you find that, every ounce of pressure you face becomes preparation for your breakthrough. Your purpose will make the pain bearable, the setbacks temporary, and the weight transform into wisdom. Purpose over pressure. That's the secret. When you align the two, your mind becomes unshakable. Your mental health isn't destroyed by storms. It's fortified by them. You rise stronger, clearer, and more determined, not because life got lighter, but because you got anchored in something greater. One of the greatest killers of mental health is trying to control everything. You stressing over things that were never meant to be in your hands. You up all night, can't sleep, can't think, because you're trying to manage the wind instead of adjusting your sail. You don't control the storm, but you do control how you respond to it. That's the difference between peace and chaos. Mental health isn't about living a life with no problems. It's about learning which battles are yours to fight and which ones you gotta let go. When I was young, I wasted so much energy being angry at the world, angry at my father for leaving, angry at my situation, angry at the cards life dealt me. And the more I tried to control what I couldn't change, the more I broke down inside. It wasn't until I shifted my focus that I found peace. I couldn't change who left me, but I could change how I responded. I couldn't erase the pain of the past, but I could decide how much power I gave it over my future. That shift, that's where my strength came from. There's an old proverb that says, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. That's wisdom. The waves are life. They're going to come whether you like it or not. You don't get to decide when the tide rises, but you do get to decide whether you drown in it or ride it to the shore. Mental health is learning to ride waves instead of trying to command the ocean. I met so many students, athletes, entrepreneurs who tell me I'm exhausted, I'm drained, I feel stuck. And when I ask them why, most of the time it's because they're carrying battles that were never theirs to win. They're trying to change people who don't want to change. They're trying to force doors open that were never theirs to walk through. They're obsessed with controlling outcomes instead of mastering their own input that will drive you insane, that will crush your mind. The secret is this: control what you can. Wake up early, grind hard, manage your attitude, discipline your body, guard your energy. That's in your control. Release what you can't. Release how people see you. Release who leaves you. Release whether the economy shifts or whether life throws unexpected storms your way. That's not your business. Your business is discipline, resilience, and character. That's your side of the street. Let me make it real. When I first started speaking, I would stress over every single thing, who was in the crowd, whether they were going to clap, whether they liked me or not. I drove myself crazy trying to control opinions. One day I realized opinions ain't my job. My job is to show up, give 120%, and let the chips fall where they may. The moment I released what I couldn't control, my mental health leveled up. I started sleeping better, thinking clearer, performing stronger, because I stopped giving energy to things outside my reach. The Stoic philosophers used to teach the same principle. Some things are up to us and some things are not. Thousands of years later, it's still true. If you focus on what's not up to you, you will drown in anxiety. But if you lock in on what is up to you, your grind, your mindset, your habits, you'll rise no matter what storms hit. Listen, control is an illusion when it comes to the external world. You can't make people love you. You can't guarantee every plan will succeed. You can't stop every tragedy, but you can choose how you think, how you act, how you respond. And that's the key to freedom. That's the key to mental health. Anxiety says I must control everything. Peace says I will control me. Think about a farmer. The farmer plants the seed, waters it, tends to the soil. That's what he can control. He can't control the rain. He can't control the sun. He can't control the weather. If he spends his life stressing about what he can't control, he'll lose his mind. But if he focuses on tending his field and trusts the process, he reaps a harvest. That's life. Your field is your effort, your discipline, your focus. The rain, that's out of your hands. Stop stressing about the rain. Just keep planting. And let me be clear, it's not about ignoring reality. It's about mastering perspective. When the storm comes, I don't pretend it's sunny. I acknowledge the storm, but I also acknowledge my power. I can't stop the lightning, but I can build shelter. I can't calm the thunder, but I can decide not to let fear own me. That's real mental toughness. So hear me, if you want peace of mind, stop living like you're God of the universe. You're not. You don't run the weather. You don't run people. You don't run fate, but you do run you. And if you master you, the external will never be able to break the internal. Control what you can. Release what you can't. That's the balance. That's the secret. And when you get that, your mind will no longer be a battlefield. It will become your fortress. Listen to me. Your mind is the most valuable real estate you will ever own. Guard it. Feed it. Strengthen it. Everything in your life flows from the health of your mind. You can chase money, you can chase success, but if your mind is broken, nothing you build will last. Peace of mind is the real wealth. Strength of mind is the real success. So today I need you to make a decision. No more letting your past dictate your present. No more wasting energy on battles that were never yours. No more surrendering your joy to circumstances you can't control. Today you take your power back. Today you choose discipline over despair, perspective over pressure, faith over fear. The world doesn't need another person who's just surviving. It needs you thriving. It needs you whole. It needs you strong. And that starts with mental health. So wake up tomorrow with a new standard. I will protect my peace. I will master my mind. I will live in control of me. Because if you can win the battle in your head, you can win in every other area of your life.